Welcome back to our algebra and pre-algebra tutorial videos. We're moving on now to looking at equations. Equations is where algebra begins to come together for the first time, and so is pre-algebra. As we look at equations, we are going to now begin to employ all of the rules we just learned about the order of operations, the rules we learned about the properties of numbers. We're now going to apply them to solving equations. The first thing we need to know about equations is this. Anytime we see an equal sign built into an algebraic expression, we know that we're looking at an equation. And what we do with equations is we solve them. I'm going to start with a simple equation and walk through the steps of how we solve an equation. Now I'm going to step in and tell some of you kiddos right now, when you see my basic equation, your first impulse is going to be to solve this equation in your head. And I don't want you guys to ever learn to do that. Even simple, basic, single-step equations, I want you to follow the steps. The reason for that is when equations get more complex, if you're going to try to work out an equation in your head, I can guarantee you you're going to get confused. So please avoid as much as you can solving equations in your head. When you get up to the level of doing calculus, and one of the last two steps of filling out or finishing a calculus problem is to do a simple equation in your head, then you would be allowed to do that. But for now, you're not allowed. For now, you must use the steps of solving an equation. The first equation we're going to solve is this. X plus 4 equals 12. Once again, the temptation is to start adding in your head. You don't want to do that. The first property we're going to employ here is the inverse property of addition, because in solving an equation, our objective is to isolate the variable. Once you've isolated the variable, your equation is solved. For instance, x plus 4 equals 12. How am I going to solve this? The first thing I'm going to do is an inverse of 4, because I'm trying to get x by itself. So it is minus 4. And remember the rule I told you guys before, whatever you do to one side of the equal side of the equation, you also do to the other side of an equation. So, here we go. Bring down my x. Positive 4 minus 4 cancel out. Bring down my equal sign. 12 take away 4 gives me 8. And there's the answer to my equation. X plus 4 equals 12. And by solving that equation, I've come up with x is equal to 8. Now we always check our equations to figure out if we did it correctly. So here's my check. If I say x is equal to 8, then I substitute that 8 for x and see if my equation is true. So this is how we check. Substitute 8 for x, because if x is equal to 8, then I should be able to substitute 8 for x. And so that gives me 8 plus 4 equals 12. Is that a true statement? Is 8 plus 4 equal to 12? Yes, 8 plus 4 is 12. Is 12 equal to 12? That's how I check my answers. Now, this was a very basic and simple equation. And I know the temptation is to say, oh, so equations are really simple. Not necessarily. They begin to get more complex as time wears on. So here's another example of an equation. 2x plus 3 is equal to 5. I just went from a single step equation to a multi-step equation. Now, in order to solve this equation, I don't have to do just one thing. I now need to do two things to solve this. So, the first thing we're going to do here is remember our objective is to isolate this x. I need to get this x by itself. So I need to start getting rid of everything that's around this x. My first order of business would be to get rid of this 3, because that's easy to do. By inverse of 3 is negative 3. Inverse of 15 is, inverse of 3 from 15, or 15 minus 3, is going to give me, bring down my 2x. This cancels out. 15 take away 3 is 12. I'm not done yet because I still have to get x by itself. Whenever I have 2x, that is technically 2 times x. 2x is 2 times x. And from our previous video, we know that to undo a multiplication, I must divide. So I'm going to divide by 2. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other side of the equation. So the 2's will cancel out. Just so you know, the reason why the 2's cancel out is simply because 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. And 1x is the same as saying x. It's just the same as saying 1 apple is 1 apple. So the 2's cancel out. I'm now left with just the x. And that brings down 12 divided by 2 is 6. We need to check this to make sure that it is correct. So we're going to check over here by rewriting 2x, 2 times x. We've determined from what we've done that x is equal to 6. Does this check out? Is 2 times 6, which is 2x, plus 3, is that equal to 15? Let's check. 2 times 6 is 12. That is PEMDAS. We do what is in parentheses, or in this case, we do a multiplication first. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 3. Is that equal to 15? 12 plus 3 is 15. Is equal to 15. And so we've checked, and now we know that our answer to this equation is correct. Please remember, whenever you solve an equation, it is important that you check to make sure that you've come up with the correct answer. Here is another equation that we're going to solve. This one gets a little bit more involved because now, if you notice, I have an x on both sides of this equation. So I have to now find a way to consolidate my x's. I consolidate my x's by consulting my properties of numbers, and I'm now going to use something that would get rid of my x. This x is technically 1x. This is 3 x's. And here's how I'm going to consolidate my x's. I'm going to subtract 1x from this side, subtract 1x from this side, because whatever I do to one side of my equation must do to the other side. X minus x, those two numbers will now cancel out. Bring down my equal sign. Bring down my plus 4. I'm going to bring down my plus 2. 3x's minus 1x leaves me with 2x's. So I'm now left with 2x plus 2 equals positive 4. This positive sign, I brought it down just because if that happened to be a negative 4, I would have to bring it down as a negative 4. Next, I'm going to try and isolate my x, pretty much like I did up here, by doing minus 2, minus 2. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. I know it's redundant, but I have to say it. The positive 2 and negative 2 cancel each other out, leaving me with 2x equals 4. Take away 2 is 2. And then the final piece I need to do to get x by itself is divide by 2, divide by 2. The 2's will cancel each other out, and that leaves me with x is equal to 2 divided by 2 is 1. So x is equal to 1. Time for us to check this. Check. This is my original equation. So we're going to say is 3, let's separate these out, is 3 times 1, which is x, is 3x, or 3, 1, plus 2. Is that equal to 1, which is x, plus 4? 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2. Is that equal to 1 plus 4? 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 is equal to 1 plus 4 is 5. And there you have it. It checks out that we did do this equation correctly. So that is my quick introduction to equations for you. This is fairly short. I want to move on to a next equation, and this is where it gets a little bit more involved. When we have a fraction involved in an equation, that equation gets a little bit more involved than before. So for example, 1/2 of x plus 8 gives me a number 32. That is my equation. 1/2 of x plus 8 equals 32. Let's start solving this. First thing we're doing is, remember, as in any other case, the first thing we want to do is isolate this x. So to isolate x, the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this 8, minus 8, minus 8. Next step, cancel out the 8 and negative 8. So I'm left with, bring down the 1/2 of x is equal to 32 take away 8 gives me, once again, my 24. 32 take away 8 is 24. Now, you guys out there, make sure you check my math. Next, in order to get rid of a half is technically considered a division. 1/2 is actually 1 divided by 2. Get rid of that 1/2 by multiplying by 2 over 1. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side, 2 over 1. So, the 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 over 2, that ends up getting the very same treatment as if this were any other number next to x. So that is going to cancel out, leaving me with just my x is equal to 24 times 2. 2 over 1 is the same as 2. 24 times 2 is 48. And once again, I ask you guys out there to check my math. So we've determined that x is equal to 48. Checking this now, let's do that check. We originally said that 1/2 of x, in this case, 1/2 of 48, and plus 8, is that equal to 32? Now I want you to notice how I wrote this. I put this in there because in algebra, this means times. Please make a note of that. In algebra, this means times. In algebra, parentheses mean times. And in algebra, something like 5 with an x, 5x3, 5 times 3 is times. So you just learned that there are 3 ways of writing times or multiply. 1, 5 times 3. Another way, 2 times 1/2. Another way, 1/2 times 48. And bear in mind again, 48 over 1 is the same as saying 48. 48 over 1 is the same as saying 48. We are going to do some simple multiplication the same way you did it back in the 5th grade. But before we do so, we're going to start simplifying here. Let's start with this. 1 times 48 is 48. 2 times 1 is 2. 48 over 2 plus 8, is that equal to 32? 48 divided by 2, which you guys would have learned like this. 48 divided by 2, 2 goes into 4 how many times? 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. Subtract that. Come down to bring down the 8. And 2 goes into 8 4 times. So 24 divided by 2 is, 48 divided by 2 is 24. Is 24 plus 8 equal to 32? 24 plus 8, 24 plus 6 is 30 plus another 2 is 32, is equal to 32, and so we know that our answer is correct. Now we are going to get some more involved equations as we go along. This one got a bit involved, but not that much. Equations are going to be the bread and butter of what you do in algebra, moving up to algebra 2, definitely as you move into geometry, and certainly when you begin to hit something like pre-calculus and calculus, equations will be the thing that you keep coming into all the time. And therefore, I want to make sure that we are all as solid as we can possibly be on solving equations. So that brings us to equations. At the end of this video, I'm going to give you a couple of working sheets that you will look at on the screen. Take your time, work them through, pause the video, work through all of those possible equations and expressions and different things. And after that, if you go on to the video, you will continue by seeing the answers to our questions. So that's going to be something you'll find coming up on the screen called Check Your Knowledge. So I hope this was helpful to some of you guys. Hope this helps some of you kiddos that are going back to school to do more of your algebra. And if you have to do it at home, I hope this gives you a good head start on being able to do your algebra from home. We'll see you for the next video coming up.